and I'll assume that's where we come in. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. Buenas noches, bonsoir, buona vini. Go with God. Sounds. Welcome to Platos Cave on Revolution Radio for revolution.radio. Coming to you from Australia, the land down under. That's right, behind the ice wall, beyond the flat Earth. In fact, we are on the bottom of the planet, so we're just going to fall off in a second. So, hey, you are home to ideas, which are fresh, uncensored, and conversations in the chat. We're in there today, right now. I'm there. I'm pretty sure Dave's in there. And that's all goodness. Station is not actually making any money from advertising or anything like that. Doesn't get any government funds, NGO funds, or funds from other funny organizations, but rather only from you, the listeners. So if you can donate, please do. Any kind of currency is good. So please go ahead and donate anything at all. Crypto is good. Cash is good. Gold, diamonds, all of that. If you can't donate, that's okay. Things are tough all over. Maybe you can tell people about the station. That's also helpful. Tell people about the station. The more listeners, the more potential donations. Thank you so much. Today is the 27th of May, 2025. 2025. You can catch the cave on the air, on the line, all the time on your smart device. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. Archives are free. So you just go to the webpage, revolution.radio, real easy, and just follow the bouncing ball, and all of the content in the archives is yours to enjoy for free. Like I said, another good reason to donate. Before we start broadcasting at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. And for Dave,
it's the Dark and John.
Imaginary. And for me, it's the Dark People. Also imaginary, because Australia doesn't exist. And we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. I mean, look at the place names that we have. How can that be real? Woolloomooloo, Woollahra, Wollongong. I mean, really? That doesn't sound like a real place. Aladala, that's not a place. That's just a viral infection, which Ukraine will clean up really quickly. No, look, hey, a few things I wanted to share with you, and Dave, I'm sure, has got a whole bunch as well. But there's certainly, hey, Dave Ski, hey, Sergeant Miller, look at that, all the people in the chat, very nice. Who else there? Batsman, very good. Darren Martin. The first, I wanted to share something cosmological with you, but the other thing, I'm really, Dave, I'm getting really worried about. Well, maybe worried is the wrong word. I'm getting worried about the political situation, such as it presents itself to us. Well, it's an amalgam, right? You know, it's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening, obviously, and it is almost funny. Let's talk about the small stuff first, and I'll get to the big stuff later. I'm really curious how you feel about it. Donald Trump had the president of South Africa in his Oval Office. Reporters were there, and then he shows them this video with a whole bunch of white crosses, and saying, "Oh, these are all people that died. These are all grave markers, etc., etc." Now, unfortunately, that's not true, because this was actually a video showing the I think it was the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and there was a protest there about all the people that had died there for whatever reason, right? Do white farmers get killed in South Africa? I'm sure they do, but I don't think in any disproportionate number in comparison to the rest of the population. In fact, I would wager my last bottom dollar that there are more black people that get killed in South Africa than white people. But then, okay, make a mistake. It could happen, right? But then they insist that it's the truth when everybody knows it isn't, and proves it isn't, and still there's this insistence, and I'm feeling transported, Dave, as though I am actually now in 1984. I'm there where people just say things, and
this is a safe place.
It's a safe place where people say things, and that's just the truth now. Let's just go with it's not. Just because you say something is the way it is, it's not. I find this disturbing. What is happening in America is disturbing, and it's disturbing all the more so because I grew up in West Germany at the time, always idolizing America. I grew up with American shows and American soft drinks, American food to some extent. I mean, McDonald's came late into Germany. Kentucky Fried Chicken also late, but certainly all the TV shows, Bonanza and my uncle, The Martian, and and American movies. My favorite, yeah, that's what in German it's called My Uncle, The Martian, but It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not the Bill Cosby Show, all the movies with Bogart and Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin and that's what I grew up on, literally. The what I like to think of as the American Golden Age, 50s and 60s, right? Really, and a bit of the 70s, and so in my mind, America was always a fantastic place, like not just fantastic, but almost fantastical. In that it might be so amazing that it's not even real, and it concerns me now that these things are happening in America, which I thought, yes, they happen in the world. They happen in places like North Korea, in places like China, where people just get snatched off the street, where people are arbitrarily sentenced to whatever punishment is available, where officials, highest government officials in the cabinet, in the administration, do not understand the body politic they govern. They don't know what habeas corpus is. They don't know what it says in the Constitution. I'm speechless, right? Is everything hunky dory? No, it wasn't before, but now it's just completely out of whack. And at the same time, where you have egregious breaches of human rights, such as the invasion of the Ukraine, the ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip, America is silent. I'm very upset with Putin, Dave. Very upset. Very upset. Crazy. It's crazy. I guarantee you, I've said it before, I'll say it again, he will do nothing to stop Putin. Not going to happen. Nothing. Zero. Because they've got the goods on him. So Putin will do whatever Putin does. And the ethnic cleansing in Gaza is a people that went through the Holocaust. Unimaginable horrors. Unimaginable horrors. I mean, my family almost ended up in Auschwitz. So, I mean, this is really close to my heart, right? But that this people would then visit that upon another people, right?
It's the
boggles.
abused becoming the abuser.
Yes, sir. It boggles the mind. It honestly does. And the complete inability to accept responsibility for these actions is even more disturbing, right? And again, the world stands by. Do you know what they said after World War II, Dave? They said never again.
That's right.
Never again. And then Rwanda happened. And before Rwanda, the Bosnian conflict and the ethnic cleansing that went on, in those Kosovo, Albania, etc. Horrendous. But there's no. Do you know what Hitler said when they started on the final solution? Allegedly. Nobody remembers the Armenians. Now, what am I talking about here is this. Prior to World War II, and I think it was between World War I and World War II, but it could have been earlier than that, the Turkish government undertook an ethnic cleansing of Armenians, genocide for all intents and purposes, right? And Hitler said, well, nobody remembers that. No one is talking about that. It happened, but no one is talking about it. And he's right. He was right. And these days, the genocide happened, but it's so long ago. It's not raw anymore, and a lot of people say, it didn't really happen, so I guess what's happening in Gaza, that's okay. It's not. What happens to the Rohingyas? in Myanmar is not okay. What happens to the Uyghurs in China is not okay. What happens to the Aboriginals in Australia is not okay. What happens to the Native Americans, well, in fact, what happens to any of the native peoples anywhere really is not okay. None of that is okay. It's not. And yet we persist. And when we look to the past and we say, oh, this would never happen again. This couldn't happen again. It's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Pedophilia, in organized pedophilia or child abuse, whatever you want to call it, right? And I'm not picking on the church because all institutions do it. Government, orphanages, etc. There's everywhere. Right. That's in the past. No, it's right now. Slavery in the past. No, right now.
Happening.
So everything you think we've left behind, everything that people say, this is in the past, it's happening right now.
I've got a common thread between all of it. Humans.
The problem is people. Yes. I've been in IT for a while. My very first IT job, I had a guy. He was a guru in Unix and Linux, right? Guru. Sure. He was like next level, right? Mm-hmm. And he was my boss in many ways. And he said to me, Mackie, we could have beautiful systems if it weren't for the users.
That's right.
And that's true.
Jim Hacker, Mackie. He's remarking about how wonderfully efficient this hospital is. And he finds out that there's no patients there. Most efficient hospital in Britain, he says. It's from a TV show called Yes, Prime Minister. When he finds out,
if you haven't seen it, watch
he's astonished that that's the reason for it.
But that's, you see,
I'll tell you, there's none of this stuff going on, let's say, on Mars right now. There's no humans there yet. Well, there probably is, because we did interview Bernie Mendez, who had claimed to be in the jump room program and had already claimed to have been to Mars with Barack Obama.
Yes.
I do need to make some clips of that.
Yeah, please. And look, the one thing we can say for certain after having done this show now for...
This is the 14th, I think, year.
14, let's call it 14 years. Mm-hmm. Which, of course, gives Dave and I an excuse to research and talk to interesting people, etc., etc. But before that, both Dave and I were interested in most of the subject matter that we discuss here since, from an early age. Mm-hmm. And I don't really have any other hobbies. So the point I'm trying to make here is there's the one thing I can say with certainty, absolute certainty, is that number one, we don't know at all what really goes on as citizens. We have no idea.
That's right.
Number two, the human race at large has no idea what's going on, even the ones that think they're there and they know. Mm-hmm. Because all of the things we think we know are theories, and all the things we think we know are not proven, and they only work with crutches. So that's the official line. But even the people in the know that have all the hidden tech, the forbidden tech, the superior and advanced tech, I also think that they don't know. The only people that I think, people is maybe stretching it, but I think the entities that do know, that I read in, are the parasites that have been here for a very long time indeed, and have become so institutionalized they can no longer leave this prison, which is what this is. This is a prison we're in. And the prison is right here. This is it. Not my hands, but your entire body is your prison. Your physicality. That's your prison. And it'll be covered the hypothesis, but our very biology predetermines how we perceive the world. Right? We are handicapped by our biology. An octopus, for instance, is a much freer creature than we are. In many ways. Right? We are completely and almost irrevocably fixed on forward, backward, left, right, up, and down. We can't think in terms other than that. And we can only think for the most part, either in linear or circular terms. Because a circle is just a line that, meets itself, ultimately. We can't think multidimensionally, right? For us, there's a continuous journey, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a linear progression like in the West or if it's a circular motion like it is in the East. It's irrelevant, but there is a journey, right? Whereas in reality, what is much more likely is that it's like the Australian First Nations people say, and some of the other First Nations people, that there's only the eternal now, which is called the Great Dreaming, right? To which we have lost contact. So in the Great Dreaming, or the dream time as we call it, it's not some place or some time in the past or in the future. It's ever present all the time, but we can no longer access it. Okay, we're cut off from it for the most part. The dreaming. So this is this misperception that the Aboriginals talk about this time in the past, the dream time.
Mm-hmm.
No, not at all. Completely incorrect. And a lot of the North American native people also said that we are living a dream and dreaming a life. Okay, and it refers to our dream states and what we experience there. And I tell you, in our dreams, we're unlimited. In our wake states, we are completely limited. Completely limited. We are so limited, it's crippling. But look, I mean, your mother was a spiritual person as well, Dave, right? I mean, what do you make of this?
Okay, so there was a few things that I wanted to touch on there about the technology. There was a press conference recently in the last few days where the press secretary for defense said that they have time and space bending capabilities.
I saw that.
Yeah. So you've got to think about what the implications of saying that, albeit possibly could have been in error saying it out loud. Just because if you know something and you're pressed upon a point, you might reveal something that your subconscious was trying to, well, not subconscious, your subconscious was trying to reveal, but your intelligence was attempting to conceal. So that's part of getting answers out of someone during an inquiry. If there's a skill there, this person was volunteering it, and I thought that was an extraordinary revelation to the American people, because it's America. But my querying mind thinks if it was intentional, if it was on down this track, intentional, then why state it? Why now? Is there something that's about to be released and they can say, well, we already told you? Is it completely untrue? For all of the people who don't believe any of that alien rubbish, is it untrue? Is it just to make your enemy fearful that you have something that they couldn't possibly achieve? I think all of these things are valid points until we see they come out with the actual evidence of it being a reality. Yes,
yeah, I agree.
This was in connection to, I think, an F-16 that was damaged by a UFO, or whatever they call them today, UAP. So this was in part of that conversation. It was wrapped up into that. But they're saying, him suggesting that it was, we've already got the tech. Great. Was it your own stuff that the collision occurred with? I don't know. I want to believe that there are UFOs, but I want to believe that there are aliens, and I strongly think the math suggests that the universe is teeming with life. But then, on another point, Mackie, I have something to show. Remember the other day that I mentioned that octopus and goats have the same eyes?
Right.
They do. And there are more than myself making this connection out there. In fact, there's even a LinkedIn article, believe it or not, of someone who's put this together as well. And I thought, wow, goats have the same eyes as octopodes. And my husband has a theory about it. I'm not going to go into reading it. You can look at that yourself. So that was another point. There was another about the world itself and how crazy it is, and how we've seen the destruction of what we grew up to believe entirely as being the basis, the foundation, the cornerstone of democracies, about geopolitics. And that is like a rug pulled out from beneath us. It's all in a shambles right now. I don't believe any of the countries have a real grasp of what makes the planet work properly. I liked the gentleman's days of trade, but that's gone. Is the competition too high? Is the stress too high? Is the landscape so varied now that none of the traditional methods of geopolitics work anymore? Is the land grab, is the genocide, are these all now acceptable? If the world doesn't come down on someone who decides to do a land grab, I mean the whole planet goes back in your box, get in your box, you're not allowed to do this. Sanctions, schmanctions, who cares? Sanctions do very little to anyone, not to the people who are making decisions to perform these atrocities, however it goes. That's why I'm thinking that I don't think that they've got any clue about how to act once the gates are like the fences are pulled down. You can imagine people in cells in a prison, I'm just going to try to simplify this, they're all yelling abuse, like the little fox terrier who can only yell or bark at the postman when the screen door is closed. When the screen door is open, it runs to the back room. When the people in neighbouring cells are yelling at each other through the bars, if they were in free space altogether, there wouldn't be the yelling. They would be trying to work out the balance, how to do this, how to do that. Australia, this is my big example. Australia just signed a gas exportation deal with JERA, Japanese consortium, to give our gas to them for absolutely no money whatsoever.
What?
We're giving the gas away for free.
What a great deal. What a fantastic deal.
And that's to avoid the tax. There's a tax on gas exports. But the amount of gas that they're giving away is equivalent to double Queensland, except for Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, and Tasmania and New South Wales current use totals. And this is twice as much as the use of the Australian people, but it's been given away for free and they don't have to pay any tax. Isn't it insane?
No, that's well beyond insane, my friend. That's just crazy.
And so we wonder, if they're giving that much away, why couldn't they supply all of Australia with free gas and sell them the gas at half the cost?
I'm sorry, but that makes no sense at all. Like, it actually doesn't make any sense.
If you Google it, if you use your search engine, because I don't think Google does what it used to do anymore. If you look for JERA, gas and Australia, you'll find the news stories. And it's so disappointing that our government has sold us down the river. I don't understand. Completely. Because imagine the taxes you could gain. We could have a country with no income tax. we are almost at the top of the nations of the world who are selling their natural resources. We're almost at the top. And there's other countries that do it and don't have any paid income tax.
Right.
We could be supporting that's right. Every Australian. Yeah, it's crazy.
What we don't have is a sovereign wealth fund, which a lot of the Scandinavian nations do have, is a sovereign wealth fund where, as Dave correctly points out, education, healthcare, transportation, even basic income, and certainly things like a year's worth of parental leave, both for the man and the woman, or the man and the man, or the woman and the woman, whatever the partnership might be, is absolutely normal. That's just normal, and incredibly well organized as well. So Dave is right, but that goes back to my point that we have forgotten, and we really have. We have forgotten why we have a civilization. Completely. Like, some countries remember it and they act accordingly, like Scandinavia and Bhutan and Switzerland, Singapore to some extent, not really, but to some extent. But for the rest of us, it's completely nebulous. We're living on Animal Farm. We're living in Brave New World. We're living in 1984 without any purpose, just serving the parasites. That's all we're doing. Where we should be serving some greater good, some societal goals, self-improvement, the exploration of outer space, inner space, as I forget his name. He was one of my favorite comedians. Went too soon.
George
Higgs.
Carlin?
Bill Higgs.
Oh, Bill Higgs.
No, Bill Higgs.
Yeah, right.
Exploring outer space and inner space forever, right? That's one of his famous monologues, the last line. And Bill Higgs, love the guy. Really do. And we have forgotten there's more to life than what we consider living at the moment. The accumulation of more stuff, the chasing after unfulfillable goals, the constant fear and paranoia that you might lose your job, or money is the most important thing. Now, in our construct, in our construct is true, but the construct is wrong. We're living in a death. We're living in a death economy. We're living in an economy. We're living in a system that will fail sooner rather than later. It's inevitable. It can't go on like this. It's not possible. Right?
The hunt for perpetually increasing sales.
Not possible.
It's infinite.
A limited system does not support unlimited growth. It's a really simple concept, not hard to understand, but yet we insist that absolutely that can happen. Absolutely, we will do this. And trickle-down economics works, as we all know. Sure, it does. We are living in a world, in an unworld. You know how we have near-food experiences? We're having near-life experiences now, right? And this is not the world. Yeah, it's an unworld. Okay, and so we're eating non-foods. We're living in a non-life, in an unworld, and which is completely governed by fear, irrationality, uncertainty, and ultimately, I guess, delusions. Some of them paranoid and some of them not, but most of the things that we're confronted with are delusions. We talk about people taking drugs, and the only way to escape it, it's really funny, right? There are two ways to escape it, I guess. One is you go off the grid. You completely leave everything behind, right? Hard to do. Or you take drugs. Drugs are an escape, which is hilarious because the life we're living is delusional, and we're choosing drugs which give us even greater delusions, or maybe glimpses into the truth. Think about that for a second, yeah? To what the life that we live could be. Especially these ancient drugs, and I mean ancient, like ayahuasca, for example, right? Which is an extremely intricate concoction that you don't just stumble across. That would have taken a long time to perfect, and would have taken a long time to even think of, and that's why I think that these civilizations before us number one, I think they existed for a lot longer than we have up to this point. Mm-hmm. They went completely different paths from a technology point of view, completely differently. And they were more focused on the spiritual realms, which they tried to get back to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Which we are completely cut off from these days. But I find it, because I look at my children, I'm sure you feel the same, Dave, but I look at my children, I'm thinking, what kind of world am I going to not leave you, but am I going to let you experience, go out into the world, right? What can I do to make it at least an approximation of what should be good living, a good life, where fear is not your constant companion, where uncertainty is not governing your every move, where you can feel free to express yourself and live a life, not just exist. Yeah.
So I also have some additional traits. I think that living a life, whenever, it should be safe. You should have a place where you're going about your business and you are entirely safe. That the people are trusted. Like you say, you go to a country town, there's only interlopers and vagrants and what are the transients that come through that are the difference, where most of the crime inside a small town in the country is committed by those persons. I'm generalizing here, but not if you watch a horror movie. Then it was always some person you didn't expect, but that's fiction. The managed decline, I want to take this a bit further. Remember how I spoke about managed decline? Well, I found this week a story here from the Financial Review from a year ago. This is May 16th, 2024. And it says Australia's new course is to be managed decline. It's an amazing piece. And if you don't know what managed decline is, it's basically attempting to reduce the losses by shrinking to then be able to bounce back from it. You lose less if you have less, and that decline is extremely important for victory there. But looking at managed decline from the Financial Review, which is Australia's more right-wing newspaper edition, used to be, all of the people in finance used to be reading that on the train going to work. If they were saying it back then, we can see it now. The course set back then, we're now in the middle of it. It's already all the dials are turned, engine room, full reverse, right? Whatever it is that they've done, they're doing it. Wherever we're going, we're on our way. If that makes sense. When my kids were born, I wanted the same thing, and I continued to wonder, and I'm still seeing worsening conditions in our society. As a society, not a local issue, not just in the city, but as a global society, it's not getting any better.
Yeah.
So, harking back to the top of the show point, what is the fix? Is anyone fixing it? No, not from what I can see. Is there any effort to talk about it, to table these points of view, and to see who is, well, any country for that matter, certainly not Australia, embarking upon it or having those discussions or budgeting for this decline? Or are they simply just in the middle of ruining it for everybody? Because that's what's really happening. I was watching, international news, as I do, and I know you do that too, and I hope our listeners do. And the amount of crime that's occurring from people that weren't born in, and I'm not a terrible person here, not born in, were recently displaced from their country and adopted by new countries around the world, their crime has gone up. Their balance and their society, everything they knew about their people and their traditions and their way of life has been, once again, it's like the rug has been pulled, and they're all scattered about like chess pieces on a board where the person who is losing smashes against the table and they all bounce in the air. It's dismay. There doesn't seem to be controlled effort to put it back together again, which I really wish they would say. I would see. I'm not seeing it. So in relation to my children, I'm still worrying.
And I mean, okay, anybody in their right mind would worry, at the very least. But sometimes, there's these emotions, because number one, I think a lot of us grew up emotionally crippled because of the way society is developing, the destruction of the family unit, etc. So we don't know how to deal with it. So we see an exacerbation of the problem because people are not emotionally developed and they can't handle it and they lash out. There's violence, there's confusion, there's mental illness, there's a raft of different conditions that goes along with it, simply because our civilization has gone off the rails completely.
So just for everybody's sake listening, the destruction of the family unit is where we were all taught. If I take it back to the beginning of it, when you go to Indonesia or wherever it is that I've seen multi-generations living in the same house. In Italy, multiple generations living in the same house. At what point did we break apart from that and were told that our best lives could be lived if we abandoned the elderly and stuffed them into homes or let them die on their own, and you're fit and sturdy enough to raise your own children on your own? I mean, what point is that?
That's a really good question, and I haven't actually seriously researched it, but I will, because this is really important. If you think about it for a second, because again, Europe and America, I guess to some extent, well, not to the same extent, was the same as everywhere else. The family unit was the key thing. The family unit, then the village, etc., right? The clan, whatever. And I know that several generations, even in Germany, lived under one roof or nearby to each other, right? But I think something happened. And this was either between the World Wars or after World War II, where the village mentality... Now, don't get me wrong, the city had already started to impact on people quite significantly, right? Industrialization brought cities, right? And the way people lived in cities. But even then, the family was still the strongest unit, because that's how you survived, right? And your neighborhood, which is the extended family.
Yes.
A replacement for the old style village. But something happened between the wars or after World War II, which I think completely shattered that. And I think it might have been after World War II, but it started certainly between the wars, because a lot of the men were killed. And a lot of people were killed in general, but men were killed disproportionately, as you would expect with soldiers, right? And I think what happened was that a lot of family units were just destroyed by default because of the world wars. So you have two world wars in quick succession. There's only 20 years between them. That's not a lot.
That's right.
Right?
That's 2 generations.
And in fact, and not even 20 years. If you think 1918 to 1939, I guess 21 years. Okay, but still, it's not a lot. And you could easily have fought in both wars if you're unlucky enough, right? I mean, my grandfather, and mine just missed it, by a couple of years, because he was born in 1901, right?
So my grandfather fought in the Boer War, and then that turned into World War One, and then he fought also in World War Two.
Yeah, that's unlucky.
No, I know.
That's it. But think about that. Having that kind of life. I mean, what kind of life is that? I mean, it damages you significantly, right? And it would lead to destruction of the family unit, because you can stand on your head and you can be as woke as you like. We are a binary species, and we do need a father figure and a mother figure, in my opinion, for children to at least be able to role model against. If you've got sons and daughters, your daughters will look at you as a father. You're now the role model for all men, and similarly, as the woman is the role model for all women, both for boys and for girls. That's the yardstick, right? But if one of them is missing or both are missing, because there would have been millions of orphans.
Totally.
It would have broken the family unit in a very significant way. And because, look, the Western culture has been dominant for a long time due to colonialism, slavery, etc. It's just what it is. It's not good. It's not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And because it was so dominant in everything, and we really emphasized the individual, we emphasized individual achievement, we emphasized winners and so forth. It became about the individual. The family unit, which was already physically broken because of the wars and death, was now also spiritually broken because we de-emphasized it. And then you had the psychology movement. Make no mistake, psychology, which started only at the beginning of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, there was no psychology, no psychiatry, nothing.
How does that make you feel?
It didn't. Yeah, I know, right? But that also fed into this loss and emptiness, right? So religion didn't really fill it anymore. Some people had it, but there's this great emptiness that we all had, and we grew up in families that may not have been functional like they used to in the olden days. I'm not saying life was perfect, but we definitely saw destruction of the core family units, which penultimately is exactly what we need as a basis for our existence. I don't think we can function successfully if we don't have a good basic understanding of a family unit, a grounding in common values, right? I don't want to say morality or ethics because that sounds too hoity-toity, right? Too highfalutin. But there certainly has to be value sets that children are taught, right? Around behavior on others, as well as how one should conduct oneself in the wider world, etc., etc. And that's sort of gone by the wayside. And now it's gotten to the point where in most Western nations, kids can emancipate themselves, as you know, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning they can now leave home at the age of 14 or 16 or whatever for even the most spurious reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, because the thing is this, if you break down the support mechanisms for a human being, that's why exile used to be such a terrible thing in the olden days, right? You were shunned. Like if something went wrong, the village, you did something terrible, whatever, some crime. You were exiled from the tribe, from the village, from the clan, from your community, never to return. And most people, as history will have us believe, would have died under those circumstances, because you need the community to live. Some can survive by themselves, sure enough, but we are communal creatures. And by creating individuals as we have, both in mind and in physical reality, I mean, look at how people live in Hong Kong. In tiny apartments, same as Japan, one bedroom apartments, usually like single people by themselves, no real community, only working, and then they come back by themselves to their own little apartments. And we're pushing more and more people in that direction. We're taking home ownership away from people.
Mm-hmm.
1 million people lost their home in America alone in 2008.
That's right.
Now, a lot of people think, oh, what a terrible tragedy. No, that was completely planned. Completely planned. And they're trying to break it down to the individual, because if you're alone, if it's just you, you're very easily controlled. Who do you turn to for help? Who do you confide in? Right?
Yeah.
What do you do? You're completely on your own, and that's exactly where the parasites want you, because at that point they can do whatever they like, and you have no choice. You have no choice, and this is now made worse, exacerbated by our digital life. Right? I mean, in the olden days, you could have cash or gold, diamonds, whatever, carried around with you, this and that. But now you only exist in the digital space. Everything you do, dealing with the government, booking an appointment, going to the doctor, having a job, getting paid. All your financial transactions, they're all happening in cyberspace. All of it.
Totally.
And if you don't exist in cyberspace, Dave, what happens?
You're nobody. Absolutely.
Exactly.
The pains that this creates going forward from here on is a total police state. And wherever you live, we know we're seeing it here with demanding that you provide a description of what the cash is for. Should you take cash from the bank? Your own cash, not someone else's cash. It's not like I've gone in with a weapon and demanded they fill the bag up with non-sequential bills. And imagine if this was the case, and then this is satire, and the teller that you've just robbed goes, what was this for? I can't give it to you unless you tell me what this is for. And you go, well, I know, I just want $1 million. Give me $1 million. But it's not yours. Yeah, I know, but, I can't give it to you unless you tell me. That's satire. But in real life, this is really happening. It's actually happening today. I was thinking, Mekki, about that. You said renting or home ownership. I think that's one of the divining periods where it was the switch, because a couple with a single income could buy a house for £6,000 back then, or £2,000 like my dad did, and then spend the next 30 years paying it off at $12 a month or something on their mortgage. Right now the mortgages are insanely large. We don't have the same proportionality between the cost of the property and your income at all. Not even at all. A car back then compared to today for the average wage is unrealistically expensive today. So are properties. Forget it. So the pushing people down further into renting is a big thing, and the rents are nearly the mortgage costs these days. So if the house was what was the calculation? I think you doubled it and added 3 zeros, and that was the retail price for the house, so whatever the monthly was. So if it was $500 a week, then that would have been $1 million house, because double it and add 3 zeros. So, but it's wildly unrealistic now to think you could buy a property in Sydney for $1 million. You won't even get a vacant block of land for $1 million. Doesn't matter where it is. In fact, it could be you've got to dig out all the slop from the sewer and live in there for $1 million. Making once again satire. But look, it is disappointing, yeah. Mekki. That's it. So was that another distinguishing moment, possibly? Post-war, we had still single incomes. Oh, I have a point. Golden Age. Remember how we did a show cycle on the Golden Age? I've now seen the Golden Age pop up and being referenced in PDB, their podcast. I've seen it on 2 other YouTube channels mentioning the Golden Age. And it's like, well, if I go back in time to people talking about the Golden Age, we kind of broke that story about the comparison to today, to when was it the best time. And now people are also recounting their Golden Age time. So we might have been in front of that wave, Mekki.
It'd be nice to get some credit at some point for something,
It'd be nice if they said, hey, look, you've got to listen to these boys because they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to just talk. The sound of my own voice is very soothing. Self-soothing. No, but
where's my blankie?
And my blankie. And we don't have to look too far. I mean, a golden age wouldn't be hard to achieve, I'll be honest with you. All we need is a fair distribution of our resources. Mm-hmm. We have to start with the children, unfortunately. So for you and me, it might be too late, maybe not. But we have to teach the children right. The children have to be taught correctly. You don't put them into prison for 6 hours of the day when they're at the age of 6 or 7. That's insane. In fact, most schools I've been to, right? I've either been to myself as a student or have seen and visited for other purposes, except for most private schools, mind you, are really laid out like prisons. Because I've been to prisons too. There are high fences around it, walls in some occasions. It's all concrete. They're sort of guarded walkways. I mean, you can't really leave the premise as a student. You're not allowed to leave the school premises during school time, right? So you are incarcerated for the school day, which is sort of, in many ways, preparing you for being incarcerated now in your office or whatever your workplace might be, right? And that goes for home arrest too, if you work from home, by the way. So, and it's really fascinating how we try to keep populations under lock and key for our purposes. As a parasite, I want my workforce to be accessible to me, to just work on what I want them to work on, right? And not do something else for as much of the time as possible, for as much profit as possible. And our children are being forced into that template. And I look at my 4-year-old son. I mean, he's going to preschool now, which is pretty free. They run around outside, they play, they get story time, they eat, they sleep, nap time. That's normal. That's like what would happen at home as well, right? If I had the time to. Right? But next year he's going to big school, right? And kindergarten, that is. And he'll be forced. There'll be a transition period, I'm sure, but he'll be forced to sit for 4 or 5 hours.
That's right.
Or an hour at a time or 45 minutes, whatever, which is completely unnatural for a child under the age of 10. I mean, think about this for a second. We force our teenagers in their most turbulent time, the most turbulent time of their lives, when they're turning from children into adults, and massive hormonal changes. Massive. And the only thing that comes close
my wings,
is menopause.
My beautiful wings.
That's right. The only thing that comes close would be for like a woman goes through.
That's what that was.
Yeah, through menopause, and these are and we force them to spend 5 days of the week for, depending, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 hours a day, to be confined to quarters. And we wonder why we're living in a failing society. And we feed them lately, mind you, not always, but lately we feed them with numbers. You should never feed your child anything that has a number in it, right? In fact, you yourself shouldn't eat it. But it's hard. I get it. That's hard, and of course I can't avoid it completely myself, naturally. But you can minimize it. But yet we do it. It's complete insanity. The way we live is geared to maximize profits for the parasites.
That's right.
Both visible and invisible. That's what our society has become. That's what it has become. Okay? It wasn't always like this. Okay? I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying that. But there were periods, not like there was never, like in living memory or even in historical memory, there was never a stretch of time that was perfect. Never. But there were stretches of time that came close to nice in certain areas. Like, go back to the age of Pericles in Athens, 2,500, 3,000 years ago. There you go to places like I guess Switzerland for the last 400 years. You go to America, heartland America, I guess, or even Greater America, during the late 40s and 50s. And other countries had those periods as well. You can always pinpoint them because that's when the arts flourished, when poetry and paintings and massive public works and beautiful statues, and people had enough to eat and trade, and everything flourished. It wasn't very interesting, so there's not a lot to be written about in the history books. No wars, nothing, right? But it was an extremely good time for people to be alive.
I'm also going to say,
right? Not
from through the 80s to the 2000.
Yeah.
In the Western world.
Yeah.
Was one of the best times that the Western world's ever seen.
Yeah, great. This is this unbridled enthusiasm, to paraphrase, or even Kramer's words from Seinfeld. Unbridled enthusiasm, and we had it. I mean, Great Britain had it, during the Regency in many ways, even the Victorian age, and not for everybody. I get that, but I'm talking about there were times where we came close to this ideal. And if we could do it for everybody, that would be the golden age. Now, there were glimpses of what it could be here, there, and everywhere, right? But in between,
flash bulbs at a concert in a large stadium. Those flash bulbs with a little through time, with the things that stood out.
That's a fantastic analogy. Just for a brief moment, there was a light, right? Just here. Then there was darkness for the most part. And again, it was designed this way. And once in a while, they managed to get above the muck.
Oh, there's some lovely filth over here.
That's not a proper form of government. And there's the music. Look, we'll continue this on Thursday, I'm sure. This has been Plato's Cave. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. Something else is going to come up. Thank you very much in the chat as well. There was a little bit of conversation, not a lot this time, but maybe next time, guys. Always love to talk to you. But most of all,
be safe and like, share, subscribe, and comment to our videos. Take care. We'll see you on Thursday, same time.